All right, welcome back everyone to another episode, and I'm here live today in Seoul, South Korea at the Co-TESOL conference and connected with one of the speakers and presenters that's going to be sharing a lot today. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. So I'll introduce her. Her name's Hayden Royalty, which is a phenomenal name.
Thank you.
Do
I
you want to
chose
share?
it myself, yes.
Yeah, so how did you chose that name?
Well, I chose my last name because my last name is rare in Korea. Most Korean last names usually have one syllable, and there are very few that have two. And so mine happened to be one of the very few that have two. And then one of the syllables, it translates to something like of royalty.
Okay.
And so I kind of just stuck with royalty.
Awesome. That's cool. And maybe share, what were you talking about today, your topic here?
So my topic was about, okay, the title was
You don't have to give the exact title. You can just give a general overview here.
sexual orientation and gender identity, and just like talking about that in the education system. And so as I was invited as to be on the panel as a YouTuber,
Yeah.
while other people were professors, teachers, lecturers, also a PhD student. And so we all had a diverse background of somewhat kind of in the education system.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, we just talked about how education systems here, it's difficult because of the climate, the conservative climate that like people can't come out, teachers can't come out, students can't come out. It just creates a really not very welcoming environment for queer people.
Yeah.
And what we can do to change that, and what we can do to help students be more comfortable with who they are.
Right. And you've got a big YouTube channel, and you share a lot about your own personal experiences, especially in kind of a conservative country and society like Korea. Do you want to maybe share what made you start that YouTube channel? What's the feedback been, and kind of your journey?
So growing up Asian American in the States, there's not that much representation of Asian characters in media.
Right.
And lately there has been a rise of queer characters, but they're always white or black and non-Asian characters. And just in general, there aren't many Asian characters and Asian figures.
Yeah.
And so coming to Korea, and actually I came here first time for 5 years ago.
Okay.
Even though I am Korean American, I just never been.
Yeah.
So being in a country where everyone is Korean, you think that the representation in media will be more diverse, but within like the same ethnicity, just more diverse. But there's no queer stories told, queer characters, figures, open figures, and so I decided that like I wanted to join that movement of creating visibility for queer and Asian people.
Yeah.
And I actually did not have a good experience in the beginning because I came out to my parents and they didn't take it well.
Can you go a little deeper? How did they not take it well? Like, what was that conversation like? Like, how was
conversation, they were like, well, Koreans aren't queer. There's no, like, Koreans aren't gay.
That's what your parents told you?
Yes. And you can't be gay because no one in our family is gay. And I was just like, how do you know? Like, they might have just conformed and just married. And you never know, like, someone might be bi. We don't know.
Yeah.
And they said that I can't be gay because families marry each other. And so no other family would want to marry my siblings. And no one would want to marry into a family that has a queer person,
right?
A relative family member. And so like everything just really conservative and very Korean just came out of them.
Yeah, right.
I didn't really expect them to be like super Korean because they've lived in the States for a long time, and so a lot of things have been just like back and forth. But when it came to something like this, everything just became very conservative and very
traditional.
Yeah, it's very traditional.
What was the first time in your life where you felt that, hey, I feel this way?
I felt
Was
this
there a point
way.
that something happened, or was it a gradual, or just kind of?
It wasn't like, oh, I'm feeling this way. It was more like after years, when I recall a lot of past experiences and memories, I feel like I could say maybe around high school was when I kind of noticed.
Okay.
But I feel like it could have been even further back into elementary school.
Yeah. Wow.
But high school, I had like the biggest crush on someone who was like much older than me. Or not even much, just older than me. And I was really confused. I wasn't sure if I wanted to like be her or if I liked her.
Okay.
And I just like I didn't know. Like I thought she was like so pretty,
Right.
and so
interesting.
smart, and I just didn't know.
There's attraction.
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what is the dating life like in Korea or Seoul in this community?
So I look Korean. When people say me, I'm Korean, and unfortunately I don't speak Korean at the native level.
Okay.
I want to say it's like intermediate, but there's like some phrases like I will know, and it's really bizarre that I know that.
Yeah.
But in general, English is very comfortable for me, and so I can only be in relationships with people who also speak English.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be like at a native level either, but that kind of filters a lot of people out.
Yeah, right.
Because
I can understand that too, because me being here, I don't really speak much English, so like there's limited options, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
unless it's purely like just a physical, thing that's body language.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And so that filters a lot of people, and then I think Korean queer culture has their own set of cultures than the States when it comes to like different identities, especially amongst like female-bodied people. In Korea, it's very binary of like butch appearing people and femmes, and for the most part, it's been always butch and femmes are a couple.
Okay. All right, I see what you mean.
And it kind of mirrors like heteronormative society of like men and like a man and a masculine figure and like a woman and feminine figure. But it's been changing. Like there's more femme couples, and there's a lot of other people like femmes seeking people who pass as straight. Right.
I'm just curious, is it more of like a long-term relationship, or is there more of a hookup culture within this dynamic?
I think it really depends on like who you talk to, because I think it kind of also reflects like the States, where a lot of lesbians and a lot of queer women are more into relationships than they are into hookups.
Right.
And so I think that kind of reflects here as well too, and here's a little bit more conservative.
Well, the reason I asked that is like I'm from Vancouver, and it's like behind San Francisco, like the gayest city in the world. Like it's like the west end of Vancouver. It's called the Gayborhood, not the neighborhood. Like Davie Street, it's like 100% gay. Like it's like
gay as in gay men.
So actually, it's interesting because Davie Street is for gay men, and then they have something called Commercial Drive, which is for where a lot of the lesbian community lives.
Okay.
So like we've got these two segments, and there's an enormous population. Like it's like the second biggest gay pride parade in the behind.
Oh, I heard.
Yeah, behind San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
I think it's San Francisco. America, San Francisco #1, Vancouver #2. And the reason I asked that is because I just have witnessed, just living downtown Vancouver, I find that it's a very kind of promiscuous. Like they have apps like Grindr, and I've talked with guys that I know that I have a couple gay friends, and they're just like, it's just like a total like, there's not much connection. It's mostly just a physical thing. And I'm just wondering in Korea if it's more of like a relationship and closer, things like that.
I think in general, like the gay men community is there's more representation of like the hookup scene, the drug scene.
Yeah, because there's tons of raves. Like I just watched this movie last night, or at the Busan Film Festival, called Climax.
Okay.
It was like the most hardcore movie I've ever seen in my life. No, It was honestly, it was intense.
Hardcore is like not that great, or hardcore?
No, like hardcore. Like I couldn't sleep that night. Like it was so
really?
graphic and just like, but it was like drugs, violence, sex, like just like the visuals of just like how twisted it. Like it was just like a lot of people walked out of the movie.
Oh, really?
Like my friend that I went with, she's like, I gotta leave. Like she's like, I can't handle this. And even me, just the way that it was filmed, it was just so in your face, and just so extreme. Climax.
Okay, climax.
I mean, people listening, if you have like, you know, a weak stomach, I would not recommend it, because there's a few times like it's just really twisted. Not in a sexual way, but just like in like a whole, like, wow, that's really dark. Yeah, it's a very dark. Can
trigger very easily.
Yeah, it's a very dark movie. Okay. Oh yeah, we're talking about the rave scene and drug scene. That's why we're talking. Right. Yeah. So yeah, no, I was just curious about the differences with that. So yourself, are you currently in a relationship or?
Actually, I wanted to cover more about.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Because, I think in general for like women. Mm-hmm. You can like if you see a lot of establishments in the States too, a lot of lesbian bars are closing down. A lot of the lesbian businesses are closing down, just because I think that doesn't really fit the scene for like female body people. But in Korea, I think the dating scene, is a hookup or not, I think it also really depends, because I have the perspective as a Korean American, so I can have a small light into the Korean community, but also a bigger light into the foreign community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think just as foreigners who don't know how long they'll be in Korea, it's hard to establish relationships and long-term relationships.
Yeah, totally.
And so the hookup culture is even just more like
in rotation. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense.
Am I in a relationship? You asked.
Yeah, I was just curious.
No, I'm not in a relationship. I was in a relationship, maybe like 6 months ago. Yeah. It was a long-term relationship. Okay. But no, I'm not in a relationship anymore.
Got it. And as far as what one of the other speakers mentioned in the beginning of the conference, or in the panel, he said that he thinks that there's at least, and this is being conservative, he said 10% of the population identifies as
LGBTQIA+.
I always get I'm glad you said that, because really it's a long one. It's a long one. Yeah. So yeah, would you say that's accurate? Because he was pretty like adamant about that. He's like at least 10%.
Yeah, at least 10%.
You think so?
I think so. At least one out of. Yeah.
In the world.
In the world,
like population, so. 1 out of 10.
Because I think maybe a lot of people don't label themselves exactly. So depending on what you're measuring, like 10%. Yeah. But I think people's sexuality can like come in a spectrum. Yeah. Of like attraction, but then there's desire, and then there's just like platonic, but still kind of some sort of attractiveness.
Well, I'll share a personal story about that. One of my friends in university, I was dating a girl, and he was dating a girl that were both friends, and we were both friends, so we would kind of double date a lot. And then he left Canada to come to Korea to teach English here for a number of years, 3 or 4. So he left Canada with a Canadian girlfriend, and he came back to Canada with a Korean boyfriend. So yeah, he came to Korea and kind of came out, and I always kind of had an inkling, or kind of like vibe, that he might be one of those 1 of 10. And when he came here, obviously he did discover or come out in that way, and he came back to Korea with like a Korean boyfriend. So I think what you said is correct, or potentially like there's a lot of people that might be in straight relationships and may be interested in pursuing other things. So yeah, it's interesting.
I think with your friend, it's really interesting too, because a lot of I think when you leave your country, you have more of a feeling of freedom, kind of explore.
Anonymity,
so I also feel like I kind of was able to explore more when I was in Korea too, like out of my community, in the States, away from my parents.
Right.
I was able to be more out here, but also I was able to kind of explore like my attraction, like am I like absolutely not attracted to men, versus am I, or like what is my Where does my spectrum range?
Right.
You know.
That just reminded me of Did you ever watch Seinfeld?
Seinfeld. I know.
Maybe you're a little young for that.
It's a bit older.
Yeah. Anyway, there's this character called George Costanza, and he was dating a woman, and after they broke up, she became lesbian. That was her first time, and the joke was that he drives women to become lesbians.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of the joke in the show. But what do you think is maybe a factor for having, maybe since you're a woman or identify as, I want to make sure, what's the politically correct way to say that? Because you mentioned earlier a female body, yeah.
Or female assigned.
Okay, yeah, that's new language for me, so I apologize for that.
People use, because like non-binary people and genderqueer people, so it's like female bodied or female assigned.
Okay. Which
usually people tend to go more medically.
Okay.
Because it wasn't our choice to be assigned that way, it was the doctor's choice, so female assigned.
Okay. What do you think is some of the reasons that want or initiate people to explore the other side?
What motivates people to explore? Is that your question?
Do you think it's
I think a big factor is curiosity, but that curiosity is not. It can be influenced by your surroundings, but I think your curiosity really comes from within you, and then you have, whether like it's enough curiosity or you take the action to play out your curiosity. I think it really comes from within.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of like curiosity, or it's a lot of like just questioning about yourself.
Yeah.
Like you might feel like your friends or your peers gravitate to certain behaviors, but you wonder why I'm not like that, and so you look for alternative answers, different answers, and that can be your sexuality, that can be your gender identity, etc.
Yeah. The reason I asked that was I was at a party last night out in Itaewon, and it got to the topic of, I guess, sex, and the guys there were saying that their ultimate dream fantasy or what they want to explore is with a guy with two girls. And the two girls that were also there said that both of their kind of curiosities or fantasies were not to be with two guys, but to be with one guy and one woman at the same time. So it was interesting, that difference, like with the guy wanting two girls, but the two women both wanted a guy and a woman.
I think there's some biases in those answers. One, I think a lot of men say, if I had a threesome, I would want two women instead of two men, and have it two men and one woman, because there's a lot of stigma in like homoeroticism, and so I think a lot of men don't want to seem like they're coming off gay or queer or like homosexual, and so a lot of it's like
but I think in general, most, at least straight guys, I think wouldn't really be. They would rather have option A, two girls, than option B, another guy and another girl. I think the majority.
I think a lot of people.
But women, I think it would be more equal potentially. I don't know.
Well, I don't really know either, because I haven't really.
Maybe that could be your next YouTube video. Do a study or survey or something.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
But I mean, amongst a lot of queer women that I know, they actually would rather have a threesome with just three women.
Okay.
And have no guys included, because people say like a guy is kind of there just for some, like a penis, like a phallic object, and you can get that in a strap-on, you can get that using a dildo, etc. So if I don't need to interact with a male, but I can still get something phallic object, it could be just why not with three women. And
interesting.
So,
and you mentioned during your talk today that one of your, I guess, topics for your show is exploring and kind of doing not surveys but reviews for like sex toys and things like that. So what's your I guess maybe
the reason why I do that?
Whatever you want to share around that.
So one, I have a friends who own a toy shop in HBC. Do you
Where's
know what
that?
HBC
No.
is? It's that area like Noksanpyeongyok and Itaewon Station.
Okay.
It's
I'll get the address from you later and I'll go
okay,
check
it's
it out.
called HBC or Haebangchon.
Okay.
And so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
own a store, and they have a very interesting history of having that store because sex toys were like it's hard. It was hard. It's illegal to have that kind of business. It was.
Really?
It was for
Oh.
a long time, and then recently it became legal. But at a certain time, it was a bit like blurred. It was technically like illegal, but like you were able to import some products, or it was legal, but it was still very strict. And now it's getting a little bit better, but it's still hard to bring a lot of products in.
Okay.
And so with like getting to know my friends more and like learning more about sex toys, and I realized that because I'm all about like wanting to like show visibility
Right. Yeah.
and representation, but more importantly visibility, that there were no sex toy reviewers who looked like me. Like a lot of the sex toy reviewers were like very like feminine women, cis women, and who, you know, were okay with talking about their sexuality, and were mostly a lot of them were non-Asians too.
Okay.
And so I thought, oh, why don't people who look like me, or like, you know, like cis women, lesbians who have a more masculine appearance, like be comfortable talking about sex. And so that's how I started about reviewing toys and talking about it and like being like okay. And that was actually kind of therapeutic for me to be able to talk about it more comfortably. Yeah, because
well, I think for people who aren't watching this on YouTube, and if you're not watching this on YouTube, if you're on iTunes or Spotify, you can go to the YouTube channel. And even with the video, though, you can't really get a full, you know, visual. But maybe you can describe what you look like, and you have two different color eyes. Your contacts,
okay. So
you know, so like people, so like you can maybe kind of give a breakdown of kind of your style, because it's very unique. Like as soon as I saw you, I'm like, that's an interesting person. Before I even, you know, yeah, definitely. So
my style, I think people would say I'm very androgynous. I usually have very colored hair.
Okay.
It's usually blue, silver, pink, etc. But I decided with the winter, the colder weather coming, that I wanted to have dark hair. So right now I have black hair. It's like jet black. And then I have very short hair. This cut, a lot of people in the States would call it undercut.
Right.
Is it called undercut? I don't know what it's called.
Undercut, yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And then in Korean, it's called two block.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know that?
I haven't heard two block before, no.
Okay, because I felt like your hair was a bit like two blockish.
It was until last week. I just got it cut really short here, so yeah.
Because I was wondering how you would ask to get your hair cut done.
Oh, I just, because I can't speak the language, like literally my hairstylist, I just show a picture. Like I find a picture on, you know, Google, and I'm like, hey, just do this.
Okay. I wear lenses, contact lens. One I chose blue, and the other one I chose brown.